Hello everyone. Welcome to Dead Time Stories. I know many of you enjoy listening to these videos as you fall asleep. So before you drift off, I'd love for you to leave a comment letting me know where in the world you're tuning in from. And if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Alright, now let's get comfortable, relax, and dive into tonight's story. When the request came in, it was just another ping under a low gray sky spitting rain. I'd been running rides since 6, the wipers counting out a metronome on I-35, my thermos riding shotgun, a peppermint rattling in the cup holder like a cheap charm. The pin dropped near a row of discount shops and a shuttered florist with a hand-lettered sign that still promised grand opening, 4 years too late. Midnight in a middle-sized city, too quiet to feel safe, too busy to feel empty. She stepped out from under the awning when I slowed to the curb. Dark hoodie, jeans, hair pulled back under a baseball cap that had once been white. She scanned the street before looking at me. The rain had polished everything to a mirror, even her eyes reflected the dashcam's red LED. "Lena?" I asked. She didn't answer right away, just opened the back door and slid in, a canvas messenger bag thumping onto the seat beside her. I clocked the details automatically, habit from my paramedic years that never quite left. Torn cuticle on the left thumb. A scuff on the cheekbone the color of an old apple bruise. Not fresh, but not old either. "Yeah," she said finally. "Lena. Where to?" She leaned forward, spoke low. "Bridgeworks Lofts. Building C, back lot." "Got it." The app already had it, but saying it out loud has a way of making a ride feel contained, like a sealed envelope. As we pulled away, she pressed herself into the corner as if shrinking from the world, or maybe from the universe of my car, the empty car seat anchor, the faint smell of coffee and pine cleaner, the squeak in the rear seatbelt I kept meaning to fix. The dashcam's tiny red light painted a dot on her cheek. She noticed it and turned her face toward the window, where raindrops were skittering in diagonal lines. "You okay back there?" I asked. "I will be," she said, and the way she said it suggested future tense like a dare. Traffic lights made islands in the wet. A train horn moaned somewhere beyond the warehouses, a long, falling note that seemed to bend the air. I kept my hands at 10 and 2, the way they teach you when you're 19, before you realize your shoulders will always hurt. We passed under the viaduct where the runoff formed a curtain, and my headlights broke it into coins that flashed and vanished. "Back lot in trance?" I said as we approached Bridgeworks, an old factory, brick and soot, refitted for a time with lives and brunch plates and then, as the neighborhood fell out of fashion again, left to developers with half-finished promises. "Please," she said. "There's a gate." The back lot was mostly dark, a strip of LED rope light looping from a chain-link fence to a sign that said residents only. The gate stood open. I rolled to a stop where Building C used to have a painted number. Rain had chewed the paint down to ghost smudges. She cracked the door and paused. "Thanks," she murmured, and for a second her face was angled so I could read it. There was fear in the set of her mouth, but also something else. Resolve, maybe, or exhaustion wearing Resolve's mask. She got out and slipped into the mob between C and D, the messenger bag strap slapping her side. The passenger door thudded shut, and for a beat my car became a quiet room, the heater exhaling, the wipers performing their endless duet. I marked the ride complete. The app showed me a drizzle of blue dollars and a prompt for a smiley face. I gave her 5 stars because there were only ever 2 categories for riders, trouble and not trouble, and she'd been the rarer third thing, someone balancing on the edge of it. Then I looked back to check the seat. Her messenger bag was still there. I called out her name even though the rain would eat it before it reached the alley. "Lena!" Nothing bounced back but the sound of water. For a second I considered leaving it with the building's front desk, except Bridgeworks didn't have one, not in the back lot, not at midnight, not in a place where the paint was tired and the mailboxes had layers of old labels like geological strata. The bag was heavier than it looked, the canvas damp along the bottom seam. A cheap brass buckle held the flap closed. I hesitated. Every lost and found video says don't open it, just return it. But then my phone lit with an unknown number, and my thumb moved before my good sense could. Hello? A breath, then a voice, male, flat, like someone reading a script into a bathroom mirror. If she got in the car, you have to finish what we started. Static cracked the end of the sentence. I stared at the caller ID. No name. No callback option when it dropped. Just a timer that hit 9 seconds and then went dead. My chest prickled with the small, very specific kind of fear that doesn't show up when blood is everywhere. I'd seen all kinds as a paramedic, accidents and overdoses, the sudden tyranny of a heart with bad timing, but menace over a phone line felt different. It felt intimate. I climbed out, bag in one hand, phone in the other, and jogged to where I'd last seen her. The alley was a tunnel of brick and steam. A window on the first floor buzzed with an insect hum, the fluorescent bar behind it stuttering like a pulse. Down the way, a steel door whispered shut. I followed, soles slipping in the wet. Lena? I tried again, softer. You left your... A shape moved across the end of the corridor, quick as a thought. I froze, listening. My own breathing was too loud. Somewhere above us, pipes clanked, a song of old water. I set the messenger bag on a dry patch of pallet wood and flipped the flap. Inside, a tangle of things that didn't belong together. A spiral notebook with a grocery list scrawled over with numbers and arrows. 2 Polaroids curling at the edges, each shot of a brick wall tagged with different dates. A prepaid flip phone, cheap, off-brand, the kind you buy with cash. It was on, and it vibrated against my palm. A text blinked onto the screen, "You're late." I looked around again. I'm not part of this, I said to the empty air, as if the building itself might understand. The flip phone buzzed again. Another message, same number. Take her to the river. Back lot exit. We're watching. I swallowed. In the distance, tires hissed on the avenue. On the app, another ride request popped up, heat maps surging red around my location. The surge pay like bait. Pick up Bridgeworks C. Destination. Riverview East Service Gate. The app does that sometimes, fills in destinations if the riders entered them already. My thumb hovered over accept. I canceled the request and backed away, messenger bag rebuckled tight to my chest. Nope, I said to nobody. Not tonight. That's when a different phone rang, the sound thin, tucked under the rain. Not my smartphone. Not the flip. It was coming from inside the bag. There was a side pocket zipped shut. I tugged it open and fished out a second phone, modern this time, case scuffed, screen spidered in one corner. The lock screen had no photo, just the word emergency and the time. 12:18 a.m. The phone was ringing with a contact label I couldn't read because of the crack. I answered. Hello? Lena? It was a woman, breathless, whispering. Ahead of me, the steel door at the end of the corridor opened a crack. A sliver of light like a blade. She left the bag, I said. I'm just... You're her driver? Yes. Silence, then a ragged inhale. You can't take her to the river. I'm not taking anyone anywhere, I said too fast. Who is this? A scrape of something against the woman's phone, finger on mic, maybe. When she spoke again, the whisper seemed to press itself flat. Listen to me. If she gets taken back, they'll move her. Bridgeworks is supposed to look empty, but there's a door behind the dumpsters with a keypad. They run the pickups from there. They watched your car. Do not bring her back. Where is she now? I don't know. The words broke. I'm trying to help. She said if anything went wrong, to call this number. Her voice stuttered into a muffled argument. Other sounds shouldering in. Male voices, a TV, the scrape of a chair. Then, abruptly, I have to, and the line cut. The steel door opened wider, just enough to let a body through. My body made the kind of choice it makes when knowledge and instinct point the same direction. I grabbed the bag, hustled back to my car, and locked the doors. The flip phone buzzed angrily. 3 rapid-fire texts appeared in a row. You accepted the ride. Back lot exit. Do not make us come inside. I filmed the alley mouth with my eyes and waited to see who, us, was. No one came out. Rain fizzed on the roof. I thumbed a number I hadn't dialed in months. The name on my screen read Jessica, though in my heart it still read Jess. We hadn't found the time to finalize the divorce, which is to say I hadn't found the money for a second lawyer, which is to say it was easier for both of us to ignore it. But Jess worked nights, and nights meant she answered. She picked up on the second ring. "Mateo? You okay?" "Hey," I said, trying to slide normalcy over my voice. "You still know anyone at 3rd Precinct? You call me after midnight to ask for a cop? You never call me to ask for a cop." "I know," I said, and told her, in the clipped, useless way you tell someone something that is still happening, about the call, the texts, the bag. I didn't tell her about the bruise. She'd hear it in my voice. "They're using the app?" she said. "Spoofing requests?" "I think so, or they're feeding rides through a white label. I don't know. The messages are coming on a burner. Where are you now?" "Bridgeworks." She sighed, and it carried 6 years of late shifts and forgotten dinners. "Stay in your car. I'll call Diaz. He owes me. Text me your exact spot." I did. Then I set the bag on the passenger seat like a second rider and watched the alley, counting breaths until the flip phone sounded again. This time, not a text. A video call request. I angled the flip phone away from my dashcam and hit accept. The camera bloomed and then struggled, the image resolving into a damp rectangle of alley and a man's face leaning toward the lens. He wore a ball cap with a local construction outfit's logo and a mustache that worked too hard to look casual. "You're late, driver," he said. "But we like the initiative." Every syllable of my name stayed holstered. She forgot her bag. "I was returning it." He smiled without teeth. "We'll return it to her for you. Back lot exit." Over his shoulder, I could see the steel door ajar, the wedge of fluorescence soaking the concrete. A shadow moved inside, the long, prowling kind, as if someone were pacing a short, hard line. "I'm off shift," I said. "You're not. We called you. That makes you ours for the hour." His eyes tracked the rear window of my car, as if he could see through it and into my spine. "Go." Years ago I learned that fear is a language, and if you speak it wrong you make things worse. Keep the sentences short. Keep the hands still. Leave space for people to show you who they are. I set the flip down, muted, and answered my smartphone's buzz instead. "Diaz," a gravel voice said. "Jessica says you're at Bridgeworks. Sit tight. We're rolling a unit. Don't play hero." "Copy," I said, because old jobs leave old vocabulary behind like scars. As I spoke, a white SUV nosed into the lot from the far side, lights off. It idled parallel to me for a beat too long, then slipped into a space 2 rows down. I couldn't see the driver through the tint. The flip phone video kept streaming, the mustache guy now showing me his palm, the universal hang-on sign, as he listened to someone off camera. A ping vibrated my personal phone too. Not the app. A text from an unknown number. "Stop recording." I glanced at the dashcam even though it was wired to run whenever the engine was on. "Cute," I said, and that was my second mistake. The first had been parking where I could be boxed in. The SUV's reverse lights flared. I threw the car into drive while my brain was still deciding to, wheels squealing against wet paint. The SUV cut hard to block me, nose to nose. Another set of lights popped on behind me, an old sedan I hadn't clocked when I pulled in, as if it had been waiting with its breath held. The alley mouth to my right was a brick wall, to my left, the chain-link gate, half closed. The flip phone rattled with new text. "There are easier ways to make money, Mateo." Hearing my name said from the wrong mouth is a special, small violence. I felt the old angry pulse rise, the one that made me say things I later regretted, but the years and the custody schedule had sanded it down into something almost useful. I took a breath. I rolled my window down a crack. "Your headlights are blinding me," I called to the SUV. "I can't see a thing." The lights dimmed to running lamps, just enough to show the silhouette of the driver. A woman, hair in a tight bun, hands at 10 and 2 like in a brochure. She lifted a palm in apology without meaning it. I flicked my gaze to the gate, open just enough. If I angled it right, hugged the dumpster and didn't mind scraping the passenger side against chain link, I might make it. Jess's warning crawled through my head, don't play hero. The thing is, heroes make speeches. Drivers make turns. I cranked the wheel left and went. The SUV jumped forward to close the angle, but the driver judged for a sane man's distance from the dumpster. I wasn't feeling sane. The metal frame rasped my door, a fox scream of sound, and then I was through, tires clapping over the threshold into the alley with a bounce that smacked my skull against the headrest. In the rear view I saw the sedan surge. The SUV had to reverse to make the turn, and that bought me a sliver of night. I shot onto the service road, rain smearing the city into watercolor. The messenger bag thumped against the seat. The flip phone's video stuttered. For a split second the frame froze on the mustache guy's face as if the camera had caught him mid-blink, eyelids heavy, a predator at rest. I took turns without signaling, chose a path that didn't make sense even to me. Old paramedic routes resurfaced in my head, the fastest way to County Memorial, the back entrance to St. Agnes where the loading dock was always empty, the cut-through behind the stadium where the asphalt heaved like tired lungs. The SUV followed for 3 blocks, then faded. The sedan stayed longer, then vanished, as if a leash had run out. I pulled under the awning of a 24-hour laundromat, the kind with a single bored attendant, and a row of machines that never quite stop humming. A red neon sign buzzed open with the old flickering pen. I let my hands shake for 10 seconds, then made them stop. The flip phone hummed again, this time with a photo. Grainy, low light shot from above. My car. Me in it. Lena's bag visible on the seat. Caption, you left her. I stared at the photo until the laundromat lights doubled and blurred. When I looked up, someone was crossing the lot, hood up, hands tucked into the sleeves. Too small for the mustache guy. Too sure-footed for a regular midnight customer. I killed my headlights and reached for the door lock, but before I could hit it, the passenger door opened from the outside with a confidence that felt practiced. Rain rode in on her shoulders as she slid in, closed it, and held a finger to her lips. Drive, Lena said softly. They aren't the only ones watching. I pulled back onto the street as if we were leaving a date that had gone fine. My cheeks tried on what I imagined a no problem expression looked like in case anyone's camera was reading faces. Lena kept her hood up and her head angled away from the dashcam. When we crossed under a street light, I saw the bruise by her cheekbone had a twin at the corner of her mouth, and an old scar under her jaw. Your bag, I said, to fill the car with something like normal. You left it. I didn't leave it, she said, eyes on the mirror. I put it in your car. Okay, I admitted. That's different. We made the long green down maple, the rain thinning to spittle. I checked behind us twice. No SUV, no sedan, just the loping orange of a city bus and a delivery truck treating red lights like suggestions. You didn't take me back, she said. You said Bridgeworks. I went where the app told me. She glanced at me then, the look sharp enough to cut paper. They told the app what to tell you. We took a right by the shuttered theater. The marquee still promised a double feature that had never played. I opened my mouth to ask how she'd slipped back to the laundromat lot without anyone seeing and then closed it again. She noticed. I went out the front, she said. There are 2 front doors. Like teeth. Cosmetic firmness settled under her words, the kind people use when they've taught themselves not to stutter when afraid. I nodded and decided, later, could be a plan. I got calls, I said instead. They used my name. They'll know your plates if they had the camera feeds at Bridgeworks. I'm sorry. The apology landed heavy, like it belonged to more than just this night. What's at the river? I asked. She took the messenger bag into her lap and cradled it the way people do when they have to hold something to keep their hands from floating. Debts, she said. And leverage. We turned into a grocery store lot where the lights were bright enough to give everyone honest skin tones. I parked where the cameras would catch every angle, pointed at the front doors. The car idled warm. "I'm going to ask a stupid question," I said. "Do you want the police?" Her mouth twitched. "I wanted the police 3 weeks ago. They told me to file a report online." I tasted the old metal of frustration. "Someone I trust called the unit to Bridgeworks. They won't find a door," she said. "They never do." A pause settled between us, and into it came the small sound of the flip phone buzzing to life again. Another message. "A little copped-out corner won't save you. Gas. Food. Tires. Cameras. Pick one. Winner's choice." I muttered. Lena's hand shook once, then went still. "I thought if I found proof, they'd have to listen." "In the bag?" She nodded. "Some of it. Enough to make someone angry." Far down the lot, a car alarm chirped the way a bird does when it knows you're pretending to be a tree. The world, stubborn as ever, kept rotating. I checked the clock, 12:51. "Okay," I said, and that old part of me that made plans in the back of ambulances rose up. "We can't stay in the open. If they know my plates, then we switch cars. We go someplace they wouldn't think I'd go. And we make 2 phone calls. To who? The person who owes my ex-wife a favor. And the person who owes me one." Lena watched me for a beat, measuring the options in a mind that had run through a lot of maps lately. She drew the bag strap tighter across her chest. "All right," she said. "But if we go, we don't come back this way." I knew one person awake who owned a car no one would be looking for, a 7-passenger minivan with a dent in the rear lift gate, and a bumper sticker that said "Honor Roll," scraped halfway off by a car wash brush. The owner, Richie, worked nights at the paper mill, and on Tuesdays he split his break with a smoke and a sandwich at the Fannin Street L stop, where the wind always smelled like rust and sour grain. "You trust him?" Lena asked. "I trust that he owes me," I said. "I got his kid's asthma under control in a parking lot once with a spacer and a scary voice. He'll show." We rolled the city's edge, sticking to the roads with fewest lights and fewest places for someone to tuck in behind us. My eyes jumped between the windshield and the rear view. I kept waiting for the white SUV to come back like a story you can't unhear. It didn't. At the L stop, the platform's sodium lamps made everyone look jaundiced. Richie was exactly where he always was, back against the pillar, a cigarette describing a nervous metronome. He squinted when I pulled up and then grinned when I stepped out into the wind. "Maddie," he said, mashing the cigarette out with his boot. "You look like a man who could use a sleep. Borrow your ride?" I said. "For a few hours?" He tilted his head, took in the passenger seat, registered Lena's hooded silhouette. He saw the bag without looking at it. "You in trouble or you doing someone's errand?" he asked. "Bit of both." Richie's mouth pulled into a line. "Keys for half the cash in your pocket, and the promise you'll owe me twice." My wallet held $68 and change. I didn't argue. He handed over the keys and the garage fob on a bent metal ring. "Bring it back, White. Gas is on E, because I'm a man of principle." I pulled the rideshare decals, the small, legally required ones, from my windshield and stuck them to my hoodie's inside pocket. The minivan smelled like old French fries and apple shampoo and hope. I adjusted the seat while Lena slid over with the bag, barely looking up as we swapped vehicles like shirts. "You know you just helped me for free," Richie said quietly by my shoulder as I started the engine. "I don't forget that. Stay clear of Bridgeworks for a while," I told him. He nodded like he already had, then lit another cigarette as we pulled away, smoke curling in the cold air like writing no one would read. I took a route that made no sense unless you were me, and half of it didn't make sense even then. We cut past the city bus barn, crossed the old viaduct where rivets glowed like embers in the wet, and ducked into a neighborhood of 2 flat houses where porch lights watched the street with tired eyes. I felt the city's pulse shift, slower here. "Where now?" Lena asked. "County Memorial," I said. "The volunteer entrance." They've got cameras, but nobody checks them in real time. We'll tuck into the overflow lot, and you'll call your friend back. The one who knew about the keypad. She's not. Lena stopped, then started again. She's not my friend. She's my sister. The air between us rearranged itself. Okay, I said softly. Sister, then. She's in deep, Lena said. I thought I could drag her out by the hair if I had proof. I thought proof was a rope. And every time I pull, someone else pulls back. We slid into a space under a dead lamp. I killed the engine and let the minivan become a small, dark room. Somewhere, a siren wailed. Somewhere else, a vending machine clacked to life. I handed her the second phone. Call her, I said. Tell her we're not going to the river. Lena stared at the cracked screen. Her thumb hovered, then fell. The phone rang and rang. When it clicked over, a voice I'd only heard in whispers filled the minivan, brittle as glass. Lena, you have to move. They know he switched cars. How? I asked before I could stop myself. A breath, then flat words. Because I told them. For a second, all I heard was the minivan's engine ticking as it cooled. Lena's knuckles whitened around the phone. You what? She whispered. Her sister's voice came sharp, like she'd already prepared the answer. You don't understand. They were going to burn me if I didn't. They said they'd. A muffled sound, like a hand covering the receiver. Voices in the background, male, low, impatient. Then her sister's breath returned, ragged. They said they'd put me in the river too. You told them about Richie's van, Lena said, her voice breaking just once. Silence, heavy and guilty. Then, I thought maybe if you were caught, it'd be over. You'd stop. They'd stop. I reached for the phone, but Lena yanked it back, her eyes bright, jaw trembling. Over? If they catch me, it's not over, Alina. It's forever. Her sister started to cry. I'd heard enough people cry in emergency rooms to know the difference between grief and survival. This was survival, ugly, selfish, desperate. They're on the way, Alina whispered. You should go. Please, Lena, just go. I can't stop them anymore. The line went dead. The silence that followed wasn't really silence. It was the hum of the parking lot lights, the distant whoop of a siren 3 neighborhoods away, the hiss of a semi on wet asphalt. But in that moment, it felt like the world had pulled back to give us space to break. She sold you out, I said quietly. Lena's head tipped against the headrest. She already did once before, she murmured. I thought maybe blood meant something. Her hands shook once, then steadied. She wiped her cheek with the heel of her palm, pulled herself together in a way that felt practiced. When she looked at me, there was no more softness left. They'll be here in minutes, she said. We can't stay. Not even with cameras. I wanted to tell her we'd call Jess, or Diaz, or the whole damn precinct. But Lena wasn't looking at me like she believed the police would ever come in time. She was looking at me like I was her last stupid chance. Where? I asked. Her voice was flat, final. Not the river. Anywhere but the river. I threw the van in reverse. The tires groaned on the wet asphalt, headlights sweeping across the empty lot. In the mirror, I caught a glimpse of movement at the far entrance, 2 sets of headlights switching on at once. They're here, Lena breathed. And then, almost to herself, we have to finish this before they finish us. The minivan was not built for flight. Its engine whined in protest, tires sloshing water as I yanked us out of the lot. The headlights behind us surged, splitting into 2 beams, 1 SUV, 1 sedan. They fell into formation like wolves. Seatbelt, I said, though she already had hers on. Lena clutched the bag to her chest. Left, she barked. I cut hard into a side street, bouncing over potholes. The minivan rattled like it was shedding bolts. The SUV stuck to us. The sedan overshot, then corrected, trailing close. They'll pin us, I said. Not if you take Jefferson. You know the grid? I lived it. Her jaw clenched. Faster! I pushed the pedal flat, every red light a dare. My hands remembered how to thread an ambulance through midnight traffic, how to hear the rhythm of pursuit in the echo of buildings. The rain thinned to mist, streetlights glowing halos in the blur. They want the bag, she said, hugging it tighter. If they get it, we don't matter, I finished. We blew past a shuttered gas station, an old billboard sagging over it. Someone is watching, in faded letters. My gut twisted. The SUV crept alongside, bumper level with ours. The driver's window slid down. A gloved hand reached out, something metallic catching the light. Not a gun, too short. A collapsible baton. Hold on, I muttered, and yanked the wheel. The van fishtailed, clipping the SUV's fender. Metal shrieked. The baton clattered into the street. The SUV swerved, recovered, and fell back. Lena's breath hitched, but she didn't scream. You've done this before. Different sirens, I said. Same adrenaline. Ahead, Jefferson opened wide, the old rail yard yawning on the right. I saw a gap in the chain-link fence where delivery trucks had carved a dirt track. Shortcut? I asked. Her eyes locked on mine, wild but certain. Do it. I cranked the wheel and the minivan lurched off pavement, jostling us across gravel and mud. Headlights jittered, shadows swinging. The SUV followed, but slower. The sedan hesitated, then peeled off, hunting a cleaner road. We rattled through the rail yard, past rusted cars stenciled with graffiti that glowed faintly in the mist. The tracks were slick with rain. The van's suspension moaned with every bounce. Behind us, the SUV's beams skittered, closing in. They won't stop, Lena whispered. Then neither will we, I said, and floored it toward the far fence. The far fence loomed, a stretch of chain-link topped with rusted barbed wire. For a heartbeat, I thought I'd made the worst call of my life. Then I saw it, a section buckled outward, wide enough for a desperate man in a dented van. Hang on! I barked. The minivan plowed through, metal teeth shrieking as the fence scraped paint and clawed at the mirrors. The van shuddered, but we burst out onto an access road littered with gravel and weeds. In the rearview, the SUV slowed, headlights scanning for another exit. We had seconds, maybe a minute. Lena exhaled shakily, her hands still wrapped tight around the bag. We bought time. Time's just debt with interest, I said, weaving us back onto pavement. My chest was tight, not just from the chase, but from the familiar taste of running. Too many nights in the ambulance had ended like this, with me burning down roads that didn't forgive mistakes. Where now? I asked. Her eyes flicked to the bag, then to me. You said there's someone who owes you. Yeah. But cashing that in, it's messy. Messy's better than dead. She wasn't wrong. I thought of Alvarez, retired detective, now living like a hermit in a shotgun house on the south side. I'd once kept him from bleeding out after a bar fight gone sideways, and he told me, drunk and bandaged, one day, you'll need a door kicked down. Call me. I hadn't called in 7 years. I made a hard right, the van's tires squealing protest. The route was burned into muscle memory, past the old water tower, down the hill where the asphalt bubbled, left at the church whose windows were boarded but still bore saints in paint. The SUV was still back there somewhere, sniffing us out. Lena's phone buzzed, the cracked one. She glanced, then shoved it into the bag. Who? I asked. My sister. Her voice was hollow. She says it's not too late if I just give it back. And you believe her? She shook her head, biting her lip until it whitened. Not anymore. We rolled into Alvarez's block, the houses small, porches sagging, each one hunched like an old man. I pulled into the alley, killed the lights. The van ticked as it cooled, darkness pressing in. You sure about this? Lena asked. No, I said honestly. But he's all we've got. I stepped out into the wet night, walked up the creaking steps, and knocked. It took 2 knocks before I heard the shuffle inside. A bolt scraped, then another, then the door cracked open. One brown eye peered out, sharp even in the gloom. Mateo, Alvarez said. His voice was gravel wrapped in smoke. Either I'm dreaming, or you've got the devil on your tail. Door, Al, I said. Please. He studied me for a long second, then the hinges whined and the door swung wide. The smell of cigarettes and fried onions hit like a wall. Lena followed me in, clutching the bag. Alvarez's gaze flicked to her, then the strap digging into her shoulder. His eyes narrowed. You brought trouble, he said. Trouble followed her, I answered. He lit a cigarette straight off the stove burner, inhaled, and blew smoke toward the ceiling fan that didn't spin. Sit. Talk. We sat at his kitchen table, scarred with knife marks. The hum of a refrigerator filled the silence until Lena spilled the story. Bridgeworks, the photos, the river, her sister's betrayal. Alvarez didn't interrupt, just smoked and smoked, the ashtray filling with gray spines. When she finished, he stubbed the cigarette and leaned forward, forearms thick with faded tattoos. You know what you've got there, girl? Proof, she said. He shook his head. Proof's a word people use before they disappear. What you've got is leverage. Dangerous leverage. Enough to get killed, not enough to get saved. Lena swallowed. Then what do I do? Alvarez's eyes shifted to me. You already dragged him in. You want my advice? He leaned closer, voice low and final. Burn it. Burn the bag, burn the photos, burn every word. Walk away. Lena stiffened. If I do that, they win. Kid, Alvarez said. They already won. You're just negotiating how fast. The room went still, the clock ticking loud as a hammer. I felt Lena's fury ripple like static, but beneath it was something else, despair, raw and sharp. And outside, somewhere far too close, the slow crunch of tires rolled over wet gravel. The crunch of tires outside froze the air in the kitchen. Alvarez's cigarette smoke seemed to hang in place, unbothered by the ceiling fan that still refused to turn. Lena looked at me first, then at him. They found us. Alvarez's chair scraped as he stood. He moved slower than I remembered, joints stiff, but his eyes were still sharp, alive. He reached beneath the counter and came up with a revolver. Old steel, scratched, but well-oiled. Back room, he ordered. Both of you. No, Lena whispered, clutching the bag tighter. They came for me. If I hide, they'll try the door first. Alvarez cut in. And I've still got enough bark left to make them think twice. Now move. I pulled her up by the elbow, steering her down the narrow hall. The back room was half storage, half shrine, boxes of old case files stacked against the wall, a corkboard cluttered with photographs and yellowed clippings. The smell of dust and gun oil filled my nose. We crouched by the window, shades drawn, listening. Outside, doors shutting. Boots on gravel. Voices, low but purposeful. Inside, Alvarez dragging a chair across the floor, setting it square in front of the entrance. The revolver clicked once. A knock followed, 3 heavy raps. Mr. Alvarez, a voice called, smooth as syrup. Not mustache guy. Someone higher up the food chain. We'd like a word. Just a word. Alvarez coughed, a smoker's growl. Then use the phone. A pause, then a chuckle. Phones don't carry the same respect as face-to-face. I heard Lena's breath hitch beside me. She mouthed, don't let him talk to them. The man outside continued, louder now. You're harboring something that doesn't belong to you. Hand it over, and this ends tonight. No hard feelings. Alvarez spat into a tin can. The sound carried. Everything in this house belongs to me. Including the shotgun under the table, aimed at your kneecaps if you so much as breathe wrong on my porch. The silence that followed was thick enough to touch. Then, footsteps retreating. Not far, just out of immediate sight. Waiting. Alvarez muttered something under his breath, too low to catch. He dragged the chair back an inch, settling in. From the back room, Lena squeezed my arm hard. Her whisper was sharp with panic. They won't leave. They'll wait him out. Or burn us out. She was right. I'd seen standoffs like this before, back when the flashing lights and sirens meant it was my job to keep someone alive until cops or fire did their part. But here, there were no uniforms. No cavalry. Just an old man with a revolver, a girl with a bag of secrets, and me, pretending I wasn't already in over my head. The messenger bag vibrated in Lena's lap. The burner phone again. A new message flashed. No more detours. River. Now. And then another, seconds later. Or Alvarez's first. Her eyes met mine, wide, wet, furious. They know where we are, what we're doing. They won't stop. The kitchen floor creaked. Alvarez shifted his weight. Outside, the crunch of a boot circled toward the side of the house. Mateo, Lena whispered, voice cracking. What do we do? I looked at her, then at the bag. Choices sat heavy in that canvas. Evidence, leverage, or bait, depending on who you asked. And outside, choices were waiting with guns and patience. I kept my voice low, steady. We've got 3 options. 1, we fight, hole up, make them bleed for every inch. Lena shook her head. They'll torch it. Burn us down. 2, I continued. We give them the bag. Walk away alive. Her grip tightened. That's just dying slower. Then 3, I said. We use it. Not as proof. As bait. We lead them where we want, not where they want. Alvarez's voice drifted back, dry and bitter. Sounds like you've done this dance before. I've seen what happens when you don't pick a move. I shot back. The burner phone buzzed again. This time, a photo filled the screen, Alvarez's porch, taken from just a few feet away. A shadow loomed in the corner of the frame, one of them, holding something long, metallic. Lena's lips parted in a shaky breath. They'll kill him if we stay. Alvarez called down the hall. Whatever you're deciding, decide faster. They're losing patience. I pressed my palms together, felt the weight of every bad call I'd ever made pressing down. The roads outside stretched in every direction, all of them dangerous. I leaned close to Lena. If we run, we don't stop until we've got somewhere they won't follow. Somewhere louder than them. You understand? Her nod was small but fierce. The floorboards groaned again, this time, not Alvarez. Someone was testing the side window. I clenched my jaw. Then we make our own river. The scrape of metal at the side window was steady, patient. A screwdriver, maybe a crowbar. They weren't rushing. They knew we were cornered. Alvarez's voice carried down the hall, rough as gravel. Windows wired, you idiots. First foot through gets lit like the 4th of July. The scraping stopped. For a moment, there was nothing, just rain pattering off the gutters, the hum of the fridge. Then a new sound, slow footsteps on the porch again. A knock, lighter this time. Mr. Alvarez. The syrup voice called, still calm, still playing the long game. You've lived a long life. Don't waste your last hours on children's mistakes. Give us the bag. I could hear Alvarez's chuckle, dry, humorless. Son, I wasted my last hours a decade ago. What I've got left is spite. Lena's hand clutched my sleeve, trembling. He can't hold them off forever. I know, I whispered. The burner phone buzzed again. Another message. Last warning. Then, seconds later. River or fire. As if to punctuate it, the faint glug of liquid being sloshed carried through the wall. My gut clenched. Gasoline. Alvarez must have heard it too. His chair scraped hard against the floor. They're bringing the party favors, he muttered. I leaned close to Lena, voice low. We've got to move. Now. Where? I scanned the back room, the boxes, the corkboard, the window. The glass was grimy but intact. I lifted the latch, tested it. It squealed but opened. A tight squeeze, but it led to the alley. We take the window, I said. Alvarez must have heard the plan. Don't be stupid, he barked. They'll see you. Not if they're watching the front. I shot back. A moment of silence. Then Alvarez grunted. Fine. But take this. I turned as he strode down the hall, revolver in hand. He shoved something into my palm, a tarnished key, cold as ice. What's this? Locker at the Greyhound Depot. Evidence I never gave up. Names, faces, accounts. You'll need it if you plan on staying alive longer than a day. His eyes burned into mine. Don't waste it like I did. Before I could answer, the smell of gasoline thickened. A match scraped outside, faint but unmistakable. Go! Alvarez barked. I grabbed the bag, shoved it against Lena's chest, and pushed her toward the window. She scrambled through, boots crunching on gravel outside. I followed, twisting, scraping my jacket, and dropped into the alley behind her. From inside came Alvarez's voice, loud, furious, defiant. You light my house, you better pray your God puts the fire out himself. Then, glass shattering. A crash. Shouts. The hiss of flames catching. Move! I hissed, pulling Lena down the alley. The glow of fire flickered against the wet walls as smoke began to curl into the night. We ran until the house was 2 blocks behind us, until the glow faded and the rain ate the smoke. My lungs burned. My legs screamed. When we finally stopped beneath a flickering streetlight, Lena bent double, gasping. The bag dangled from her shoulder like a stone dragging her down. Her voice was raw when she spoke. We left him. I squeezed the key in my fist, its edges biting into my skin. We didn't leave him. He chose to buy us time. Tears mixed with rain on her cheeks. What if he knew the cost? I said, though my throat ached. We can't stop. Not now. She nodded once, hard, swallowing her grief like a pill. Then where? I opened my hand, stared at the key glinting under the sickly streetlight. The Greyhound Depot. A locker with answers Alvarez thought were worth dying for. We go get what he left us, I said. And then we finish this. The Greyhound Depot at 2 a.m. was a cathedral of echoes. Fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, vending machines humming like distant choirs. The occasional cough of someone waiting for a bus that never seemed to come. We slipped in through the side entrance, hoods up, clothes damp with rain and smoke. Nobody gave us more than a glance. Everyone there had their own reasons not to stare. The lockers lined the far wall, rows of dented steel, numbers faded, paint scratched. I found the one Alvarez's key fit, 117. My hands shook as I turned the lock. The door swung open with a hollow clang. Inside was a manila envelope, thick, heavy. I pulled it out, set it on the bench. Lena leaned close, eyes wide. What is it? I opened the flap. Papers, photographs, flash drives. A world of evidence spilling out, names scribbled on ledger pages, snapshots of men exchanging envelopes in dark corners, receipts tied to shell accounts. One photo slid loose. It showed the man with the syrup voice, standing by a black SUV, hand on the shoulder of a uniformed cop. Both smiling like they'd just closed the deal. Lena's breath caught. They're everywhere. I tucked the photo back, shoved the envelope into the bag. Which means there's only one way to use this. Expose them, she whispered. Louder than they can silence. I said. We don't take it to the cops. We take it somewhere they can't bury it. The depot's intercom crackled. A voice announced the delayed bus. Just noise, just routine. But when I looked up, I saw him, mustache guy, leaning against a vending machine, smiling like he'd been waiting all along. And behind him, 2 more men closed in from the other side of the depot. Lena clutched my arm, whisper sharp with terror. They're here. The fluorescent lights hummed louder in my head as the 3 men fanned out, boxing us against the locker wall. Mustache guy tipped his cap back, his smile lazy, practiced. Long night, driver, he said. His eyes flicked to the bag on Lena's shoulder. And you brought us exactly what we came for. Lena pressed herself into the corner, fingers white-knuckled around the strap. I shifted a step forward, keeping myself between her and them. You've been chasing us since Bridgeworks, I said, trying to keep my voice level. Why not just take her then? Mustache guy's grin widened. Because leverage rots if you take it too soon. We wanted her scared, desperate, running to ground. Now she's out of places to run. He snapped his fingers. The two men flanking him, both younger, both built for blunt work, closed in. One reached inside his jacket. Don't, I warned. The man paused, smirking. What are you gonna do, old man? Throw a bus schedule at me? But Mustache Guy held up a hand. His eyes hadn't left mine. No. Mateo's not bluffing. Are you driver? He knew my name again, said it like he owned it. That old prickling fear rose up, but I shoved it down. I thought of Alvarez, of the house catching fire, of the key he'd shoved into my hand. You don't want me bluffing, I said quietly. Because I'll make this messy. Messier than you can clean up in a Greyhound depot with cameras and witnesses. He chuckled. Messy is what we're good at. Then the PA crackled overhead. Last call for bus 409 to Houston, now boarding at gate 6. The timing hit like a lightning bolt. Gate 6 was at the far end of the depot, where the few passengers had gathered with bags and tired eyes. A crowd. Noise. Cameras. I leaned close to Lena, whispering fast. When I move, we go. Gate 6. Don't stop. She swallowed, nodded once. I bent, pretending to adjust my shoe. My hand closed around the locker door. I yanked it open hard, metal slamming into the nearest thug's knee. He shouted, stumbling. In the same motion, I shoved Lena forward. Run! We bolted, weaving between benches. Mustache Guy cursed, shouting for the others to grab us. The depot exploded with noise, shoes slapping tile, voices yelling, the hiss of a soda can knocked from a machine and rolling. Passengers turned, startled. A woman dropped her suitcase. Someone shouted, Hey! We cut through the crowd at gate 6 just as the driver was taking tickets. Lena shoved the bag under her jacket, her hood low. I pressed a crumpled 20 into the driver's hand and said, Family emergency, 2 seats, please, just let us on. The driver frowned, glanced at the chaos behind us. Mustache Guy barreling closer, goons shoving through passengers. He made a decision. Go. Back row. We stumbled up the steps, the door hissing shut behind us. The crowd outside slowed the men just enough. The bus lurched forward, tires groaning, pulling out of the depot into the wet night. Lena collapsed into the back seat, chest heaving, bag still clutched to her chest. Her eyes shimmered, wild, disbelieving. We did it, she whispered. But I stared out the back window, watching the depot shrink. Mustache Guy stood in the rain, face tilted up, smiling, not like he'd lost, but like he'd just marked his prey. And in my gut I knew this wasn't escape. It was only delay. The bus hummed down the interstate, lights inside dimmed. Most passengers had already fallen into that strange Greyhound sleep, half upright, half dreaming. The air smelled of coffee, damp coats, and engine heat. Lena leaned her head against the window, the bag in her lap. Her reflection looked pale, hollow. I kept scanning the aisle, my nerves refusing to relax. They won't give up. She nodded without looking at me. They never do. Then we need somewhere they can't reach. Somewhere louder than their money. Her fingers traced the edge of the envelope inside the bag. Media, she whispered. If we leak this, it's too big to bury. Maybe, I said. But we'd better be ready to burn every bridge getting there. She finally looked at me, eyes fierce in the dim light. I already burned mine. The bus rattled on, rain streaking the windows like scratches. For a fleeting moment, surrounded by strangers and anonymity, it felt almost safe. But then the driver's radio crackled. A voice leaked through, faint but chillingly familiar, syrup smooth, calm. Bus 409, you've got a package on board. Don't worry, we'll take it off your hands at the next stop. The driver glanced at the radio, puzzled. Passengers stirred. Lena's hand found mine under the seat, cold and shaking. They're already ahead of us, she whispered. The driver tapped the radio, frowning. Dispatch? You repeat that? Didn't catch it. Static. Then silence. But I knew. That voice didn't belong to dispatch. The bus rolled on through the rain-slicked highway, headlights gliding over wet asphalt. Nobody else seemed to notice the tension strung tight through the aisle. A man in a hoodie snored softly. A woman thumbed her phone, earbuds in. But Lena's grip on my hand didn't loosen, and my pulse didn't slow. We can't wait for the next stop, she whispered. If we get off early, they'll see, I said. They're watching every mile. Her gaze darted to the back of the bus. A man had boarded last minute, heavy jacket, put up, reading a newspaper that didn't make sense at 2 in the morning. I caught the angle of his eyes, tracking us through the gap. They already have someone here, she breathed. The bus slowed. Out the window, a gas station canopy slid into view, neon humming against the drizzle. A scheduled rest stop. The driver picked up his mic. 15 minutes, folks. Smoke 'em if you got 'em. My stomach sank. A perfect place for a snatch. Open, bright, crowded just enough to hide in. The bus hissed to a halt. Passengers shuffled up, yawning, stretching. The man with the newspaper folded it neatly, stood, and walked down the aisle. His hood shadowed his face, but the way his hands hung loose at his sides told me everything. Ready, relaxed, predatory. Lena squeezed my arm. What do we do? I thought fast. We had 3 bad options. Stay seated, pray he didn't act inside the bus. Step out into the rest stop, surrounded and exposed. Make our own door before either happened. The man reached the front of the bus, pausing at the driver's shoulder. They exchanged a few quiet words. The driver frowned, glanced back toward us. Lena's breath quickened. Mateo. Window, I said. Her eyes widened. You're serious? Serious as fire. I pulled the latch on the emergency exit window. It squealed, stiff with age. The man's head turned, sharp as a hawk. Go, I hissed. Lena scrambled through first, landing in wet grass with a thud. I shoved the bag out after her, then swung my legs. Shouts rose inside the bus. The man lunged down the aisle. I dropped into the mud just as his hand slapped the glass where my head had been. Run! I barked. We sprinted into the night, the neon glow shrinking behind us, footsteps pounding the wet ground. The field behind the rest stop was wide and uneven, studded with patches of weeds and half-buried trash. Our shoes squelched, mud sucking at every step. Behind us, the bus door hissed open. Yells cut through the night. More than one voice. They've got backup! Lena gasped. Of course they do. My lungs burned, but I forced my legs faster. Up ahead, a drainage ditch cut across the field. Water rushed through it, swollen from rain. The opposite bank was slick clay steep. We'll never climb it, Lena panted. I scanned left, right. A storm pipe jutted out of the embankment, mouth wide enough for us to crawl. The current poured from it, foamy and fast. Pipe! I shouted. We slid down the ditch wall, mud painting our clothes. Lena clutched the bag to her chest, eyes wide as the black mouth of the pipe swallowed the moonlight. They'll follow, she whispered. Not far, I said. Not if they don't like drowning. The shouts were closer now, splashing through the ditch. A flashlight beam cut the dark, jittering across the water. I grabbed Lena's hand, yanked her toward the pipe. Inside. Now. She hesitated only a heartbeat, then dropped to her knees and crawled in, water surging around her. I followed, the cold biting into my bones. Behind us, boots slid in the mud. Voices cursed. Someone fired, a sharp crack that echoed through the night. Bullets slapped water, ricocheted off concrete. Lena screamed, ducking lower. I shoved her forward. The pipe swallowed us whole, dark and roaring, carrying us deeper, away from the light, away from the world. The roar of water filled everything, a grinding rush that drowned out our own breathing. The pipe stank of rust and algae, the walls slimy under my palms as I crawled. Lena's knees splashed ahead of me, her silhouette a jittering outline in the flashlight beams that spilled after us. "Keep going!" I barked. Her voice came back, trembling, almost lost in the echo. I can't see." "You don't need to. Just follow the current." Behind us, boots clanged against the pipe's rim. Voices shouted, one high and angry, another low and controlled. A light stabbed into the dark, jittering as they tried to crawl in after us. "Faster!" I urged. The water deepened, tugging at our legs. The current was stronger than it looked, pulling us forward whether we liked it or not. My chest scraped the ceiling. The pipe narrowed, every inch a coffin. Lena's breath hitched. "It's too tight. Breathe shallow. Don't stop." Something metallic clanged behind us. A handcuff chain? A baton? Whatever it was, it echoed sharp and ugly in the confined space. Then bang. A gunshot, deafening inside the pipe. Sparks spat off the concrete inches from my head. Lena screamed, ducking low into the water. I shoved her forward harder. "Go! Go!" She scrambled, splashing, until suddenly the water surged faster. The pitch dropped, echoing like thunder. I felt it before I saw it, an opening ahead, where the pipe emptied into open air. "Drop coming!" I shouted. We spilled out, water throwing us into space. The world spun, rain, concrete, sky, and then we slammed into a shallow basin below. My shoulder cracked against stone, my teeth rattled. Lena hit beside me with a cry, clutching the bag. We staggered to our feet, drenched, bruised, gasping. The pipe loomed above, a black mouth spewing water. Flashlights bobbed at its lip, voices cursing. But none followed. "They won't risk the drop," I panted. Lena hugged the bag to her chest. Her hair clung to her face, eyes wide and shining with terror and something harder, resolve. "Where are we?" she asked. I looked around. We stood in a drainage canal, walls slick with moss, chain-link fences looming on either side. The city glowed in the distance, orange and pale, but here it felt like another world, cut off, forgotten. "Lower East Side," I guessed. "Near the freight yards." Her jaw tightened. "We can't stop here." I nodded, pushing my soaked hair back. "No. But we bought time." A phone buzzed. Not mine. Not hers. The bag. She pulled out the burner. A new message blinked on the cracked screen. "Good. Keep running. You're doing our work for US." Her hands shook as she turned it toward me. "They want us to move." My gut twisted. Alvarez's words came back, raw and bitter. "Proof's just bait if you don't know how to use it." "They're hurting us," I said. "Every step." Lena's voice cracked. "Then how do we turn it on them?" I stared at the glowing skyline, my fist tightening around Alvarez's key in my pocket. The Greyhound locker was just the beginning. There had to be more. "We stop running," I said finally. "We pick where the game ends. Not them." The canal fed us into the edge of the freight yard, a sprawl of tracks and stacked containers. Tower lights cast long shadows, cranes frozen like skeletons in the mist. We climbed the embankment, shoes slipping in the wet, until we reached the gravel field of tracks. The air smelled of diesel and rust. Somewhere, a train horn moaned low, lonely. Lena hugged herself against the cold, the bag still heavy on her shoulder. "Why here?" "Because it's loud," I said. "Because it's open. And because people disappear in yards like this all the time. That's what they expect." Her eyes darted. "And we use that?" I nodded. "We disappear, but on our terms." She swallowed, pulling her hood tighter. "You sound like you've done this before." I didn't answer. We wove between the stacked containers, the gravel crunching under our soaked shoes. The night pressed in, broken only by the distant hum of the city. Every shadow felt alive. The phone buzzed again. Another message. "River is waiting. Don't be late." Lena's voice was flat. "They'll never stop, will they?" "Not if we keep holding this bag," I said. She stopped walking, turned to me, her eyes fierce even in the dim light. Then maybe we stop carrying it. Her words hung between us, heavy as the night. The freight yard stretched like a graveyard of steel, endless rows of containers stacked 3 high, shadows making mazes. The gravel underfoot shifted and hissed with every step, loud enough to betray us. Lena clutched the bag close, whispering, "They'll find us here. It's perfect cover for them. That's why we make the cover work for us," I said, scanning the stacks. "Containers are numbered. They'll expect us to run. We make them chase the wrong way." We ducked into a narrow corridor between 2 rusting rows. The air smelled of wet metal and old oil. My ears strained for every sound, the hum of distant lights, the faint clatter of loose sheet metal. Then I heard it, footsteps 2 rows over, steady, confident. Not rushing. Hunting. "They're here," Lena mouthed. I raised a finger to my lips. We pressed against cold steel, letting the footsteps pass. A voice cut through the night, syrup smooth, too close. "Lena!" Her whole body flinched. "Lena, you're making this harder than it needs to be. All that running, all that fear. You could have been asleep hours ago if you'd just come to the river. It's quiet there." Another voice, sharper, younger, from a different direction. "Boss, I saw tracks. Mud on the gravel. They're here." My pulse thudded. They were closing in. I leaned to Lena's ear. "We split. I lead them away. You take the bag, circle back." Her grip tightened on my arm, desperate. "No. If they get you, better me than both of us," I whispered. "Go." Before she could argue, I shoved gently, guiding her down a side row, then stepped out into the open. My boots crunched deliberately. The syrup voice cut sharp. "There he is." Flashlights flared, beams stabbing across the yard. Shadows leapt tall on the containers. I bolted, weaving left, right, across tracks. Shouts chased me. "Stop him! Cut him off!" I ran harder, lungs tearing, until the yard opened onto an old service platform. Rusted stairs led to an abandoned crane. I scrambled up, 2 at a time, my legs screaming. At the top, I ducked behind the control cabin, chest heaving, and waited. Below, beams of light swung wildly. The men spread out, searching. Mustache Guy stepped onto the platform, his silhouette sharp against the mist. His voice carried up, calm and patient. "You're brave, driver. Foolish, but brave. You think you can buy her time. But she's not the one we want anymore." He tilted his head, eyes glinting in the glow. "It's you, Mateo. You're the one who won't stop running." The words hit harder than I wanted to admit. My grip tightened around the railing. Behind him, more footsteps crunched closer. And in the maze of containers, faint but clear, I heard Lena's scream. My body moved before thought caught up. I vaulted down the stairs, metal rattling, pain shooting up my knees. Mustache Guy turned, raising a hand. "Alive!" he barked. "We need him alive!" I hit the gravel, sprinting toward the sound. My lungs burned, every breath like glass. Between 2 rows of containers, I saw them. 2 men had cornered Lena, one gripping her wrist, the other reaching for the bag. "Let go!" she cried, twisting. I charged, shoulder first, slamming into the nearest man. He went down hard, gravel tearing his cheek. The other swung at me, fist catching my jaw, bright sparks exploding in my vision. I stumbled, spat blood, then drove my elbow into his gut. He wheezed, doubling over. "Run, Lena!" I shouted. But she didn't. She swung the bag like a weapon, slamming it into the second man's face. He crumpled, blood streaming from his nose. She grabbed my arm, eyes wide, fierce. "Don't you dare leave me!" Behind us, Mustache Guy's voice rang out, closer now. "Enough!" Flashlights converged. Shadows grew. We were boxed in, nowhere left to run. Lena clutched the bag to her chest, trembling but defiant. "We're not going to the river." Mustache Guy stepped into the light, his smile sharp. "No, you're not." He raised his hand, and for the first time tonight, I saw the gun glinting there. The pistol gleamed wet under the tower light, steady in Mustache Guy's hand. He didn't wave it, didn't posture. He held it like a man who used it often. Bag, he said. Calm. Final. Lena pressed closer to me, her breath trembling against my arm. Don't give it to him. I felt the weight of Alvarez's key in my pocket, sharp against my thigh. The bag wasn't just leverage, it was bait, like Alvarez had said. Hand it over, and we'd be nothing but witnesses, bodies waiting to disappear. Mustache Guy tilted his head. You think you're clever. Running, hiding, calling in favors. But all you've done is make noise. And noise is easy to track. He took a step closer, boots crunching gravel. The circle of men behind him tightened, flashlights jittering. We were blind to everything except their beams. You kill us here, somebody sees, I said, forcing steel into my voice. Cameras, train crews. Too messy. He smiled, teeth sharp in the glow. That's the difference between you and me, Mateo. I like messy. He raised the gun, straight at Lena. My body moved before my brain caught up. I shoved her sideways and lunged. The shot cracked, a thunderclap that made the night shake. My shoulder lit up with fire, the bullet grazing deep. Pain screamed down my arm, hot and wet. I crashed into him, the gun arm jerking wide. Another shot fired wild, sparks bouncing off steel. We hit the gravel hard, his breath bursting from him. The gun skittered away. Chaos erupted. Shouts. Boots rushing. Lena screamed my name. I scrambled, vision swimming, and my hand closed on the revolver Alvarez had slipped me earlier, still heavy in my pocket. I yanked it free, thumbed the hammer back. Move and I'll drop you! I snarled, the barrel sweeping the circle of flashlights. For the first time, Mustache Guy's smile faltered. Not fear, calculation. He raised both hands, slow, deliberate. His men froze, uncertain. Blood ran warm down my sleeve, dripping onto the gravel. My chest heaved. I pressed my back against the container wall, the revolver steady despite the pain. Bag stays with us, I growled. You want it, you come take it from a corpse? Mine or yours? Silence stretched, taut as a wire. Then Mustache Guy laughed. Low, rasping, ugly. You've got fight, he said. More than most. That's why they'll keep coming. Because they know you won't stop. His eyes flicked to Lena, still clutching the bag, tears mixing with rain. And she won't either. He whistled sharp. In unison, his men backed away, fading into the maze of containers. Their beams winked out one by one until only the tower light glowed, yellow and thin. Mustache Guy lingered, hands still raised, grin stretched too wide. Enjoy your night, driver. Every step you take from here on out, we'll be walking with you. Then he vanished into shadow, boots crunching soft until the night swallowed the sound. The silence left behind felt wrong, heavier than their presence. Only the hiss of rain and the distant groan of steel filled the yard. I sagged against the container, revolver lowering. The wound in my shoulder pulsed with every heartbeat, warm blood soaking my sleeve. Lena dropped beside me, eyes wide, frantic. You're hit. Grazed, I panted. Hurts like hell, but I'll live. Her hand shook as she tore at the bag, pulling out fabric scraps, papers, anything to press against the wound. She found a shirt, pressed it hard to my shoulder. Pain flared bright, and I hissed through clenched teeth. You saved me, she whispered, voice breaking. I forced a grim smile. You still owe me cab fare. She let out a shaky laugh, then quickly sobered. Her eyes darted to the shadows where Mustache Guy had vanished. They let us go. No, I said. They marked us. We're not prey, they're hurting us. She swallowed hard. Then what do we do? I reached into my pocket, pulled out Alvarez's key. The metal was slick with my blood. I held it up between us. We use this, I said. Whatever Alvarez stashed in that locker, it's bigger than the bag. Bigger than them. That's why he gave it to me. Her gaze locked on the key, then back to me. And if it kills us? I pushed off the container, teeth gritted against the pane. Then at least we pick where. The freight yard stretched endless before us, rain painting every shadow deeper. Somewhere in the dark, footsteps echoed. Maybe theirs, maybe just the city breathing. Either way, we weren't done. Not yet. The freight yard bled into side streets. Broken pavement, rusted lampposts, buzzing like tired insects. Every shadow felt like eyes. My shoulder throbbed with every step, the makeshift bandage already soaked through. Lena kept close, one hand gripping the bag, the other hovering near me like she was ready to catch me if I fell. She hadn't said much since the fight, just kept scanning the darkness. Finally, her voice broke the silence. "You're losing blood." "I've lost worse," I muttered. "You keep the bag tight." "I keep moving." She shook her head. "You can't just push through everything." I gave her a look that must have said watch me, because she pressed her lips together and didn't argue. The city shifted around us, neighborhoods blending, warehouses slumped beside dollar stores, half-dead motels glowing sickly neon. We avoided main roads, slipping through alleys and empty lots. At every corner, I expected headlights to swing around, a familiar SUV to roll up slow. But nothing came. Too quiet. Too easy. "They're letting us move," I said finally. "They want us to get to Alvarez's locker." Lena hugged the bag tighter. "Why?" "Because whatever scenario either buries them, or buries us." She stopped walking, turned to me, her face pale in the streetlight. "Then maybe we don't go. We don't have a choice." Her eyes shimmered wet. "Mateo, every step we take, they're already ahead. My sister sold me out. The police won't listen. Alvarez is," her voice cracked, "gone. What if this key is just another trap?" I reached out, gripped her shoulder with my good hand. "Then we turn the trap inside out. They've been steering us this whole night, but they don't know the roads like I do. If this locker is bait, we'll make sure they choke on it." She searched my face, as if trying to measure whether I believed it. Then she nodded, slow, resigned. "Okay," she whispered. We walked again, the night stretching, the streets narrowing. Finally, the Greyhound Depot's second location rose out of the dark, the old South Terminal, mostly abandoned, still lit just enough for buses that ran twice a day. It looked dead. Too dead. I felt the key heavy in my pocket. "They're here already," I said. Lena's grip on the bag tightened until her knuckles went white. "Then we end it here." The South Terminal reeked of dust and diesel, its wide waiting room lined with cracked tiles and empty vending machines. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead, half burned out. The lockers stood against the far wall, rows of dented doors numbered in faded paint. My eyes found it quick, 33. Alvarez's locker. But the room wasn't empty. 3 men waited near the lockers, dark jackets, hands in pockets. Not mustache guy. Not syrup voice. Just soldiers, filling space. Their eyes tracked us the moment we stepped in. Lena stiffened, whispering, "It's a setup." "Of course it is," I said. The middle man stepped forward, calm, rehearsed. "Locker 33. Open it. Walk away." "Funny," I said, shifting my weight. "That's exactly what your boss said about Bridgeworks. And look where we are." The man's jaw twitched. "This isn't a negotiation." I slid my hand into my pocket, felt the cold bite of the key. My revolver was empty, but they didn't know that. "Then you won't mind if I take my time?" I turned to Lena and nodded. "Stay behind me." Step by step, we moved closer to the locker. The men didn't advance, just watched, waiting for their cue. At the wall, I slid the key into the lock. It turned smooth, like it had been waiting for this moment. The door creaked open. Inside was a single object, a hard drive, taped with a note scrawled in Alvarez's jagged handwriting. "If you're reading this, it means I didn't make it. Don't trust the bag. This is the real fire." My stomach dropped. I yanked the drive free, shoved it into my jacket. The 3 men tensed, eyes narrowing. Hand it over, the middle one said. Before I could answer, the intercom above crackled to life. Package received. Syrup voice drawled, smooth and mocking. Escort them to the river. The men pulled their hands from their jackets, and the glint of steel filled the room. The three men drew steel in unison, pistols, black and blunt in the flickering light. The one in the middle motioned with his chin. Drive. Bag. Both. Now. Lena pressed into my back, clutching the messenger bag like it was life itself. I felt her breath hitch against my shoulder. Think, I whispered to her, low, so only she could hear. The drive is real. The bag is bait. Her fingers tightened. I took one step sideways, angling us toward the row of cracked vending machines. If bullets flew, maybe, the steel frames would take the first hit. The men closed in, boots echoing on tile. Don't be stupid, the middle one said. His gun never wavered. Story of my life, I muttered. I dropped, yanking Lena down with me, and kicked the locker door wide open. The steel slammed against the man's shin. His curse cracked the air. At the same moment, I hurled the messenger bag across the floor. It skidded into the far corner. All three men's eyes snapped to it. Now! I barked. Lena bolted, dragging me with her toward the vending machines. Gunfire shattered the quiet, 3 deafening cracks. Bullets punched into metal, glass exploding into showers of candy bars and soda. I shielded Lena with my body, shoulder screaming in protest, until we ducked behind the machines. The intercom buzzed again, syrup voice purring through static. Don't shoot them yet. We want them intact. Just tired. The words chilled me worse than the bullets. They weren't here to kill us. They were here to wear us down. Lena's hand fumbled at my jacket, finding the hard drive. Her eyes were wide, furious, determined. We can't let them get this. I nodded, breathing hard. Then we make sure it leaves here with us. Glass crunched. The men were advancing, careful, guns raised. The middle one's voice carried, mocking. You don't have anywhere left to run. I scanned the room, walls, ceiling, exits. And there it was, the emergency exit sign above a rusted door, half blocked by a vending machine that had shifted in the gunfire. I jerked my head toward it. Lena followed my gaze, then looked at me. We'll never make it. Maybe not, I said, forcing a grim smile. But they don't know I'm empty. She blinked, confused. Then her eyes flicked to the revolver at my waist, realization dawning. I raised the weapon, pointed it toward the corner, and fired. Click. Dry. No bullet. But in the echoing room, the sound of the hammer striking the pin was enough. The men ducked instinctively, splitting their aim. Go! I shouted. Lena sprinted, slipping on broken glass, yanking at the bent vending machine. Adrenaline turned her small frame into something stronger, desperate. It shifted just enough for her to squeeze past. I backed after her, squeezing the trigger again. Click, click, click. Each hollow strike echoed like thunder. The men cursed, ducked, recalculated. I shoved through the door after Lena. The night hit us cold, wet. We tumbled into an alley stinking of diesel and rain. Behind us, boots thundered against tile. They'll follow, Lena gasped. I clutched the hard drive tight, teeth clenched. Then we stopped running blind. We pick where this ends. The alley dumped into a wide industrial street, the kind that looked empty even in daylight. Sodium lights hummed overhead, painting the rain in jaundiced halos. A horn bellowed in the distance, a freight train, slow, heavy, dragging its weight across the city. The sound rolled through me like an idea. Lena followed my gaze. The yard? Loud, I said, nodding. Too loud for them to control. She hesitated. And if we're wrong? I smiled, grim and tired. Then we die with more witnesses than they'd like. We ran, shoes slapping wet asphalt, lungs burning. Behind us, the terminal door banged open, voices barking orders. Shadows spilled into the street. The train's horn moaned again, closer now, its bulk cutting across the blocks ahead. I angled us toward it, Every step a gamble, every corner a trap waiting to be sprung. "They'll never stop," Lena panted. "Good," I said. "Neither will we." The street pitched downward, funneling us toward the tracks. Gravel crunched beneath our shoes as the freight train thundered past, a wall of steel and noise. Boxcars screeched against each other, sparks flaring in the rain. I grabbed Lena's hand, dragging her toward the fence line. "If we can get across, they lose line of sight." She glanced back. Flashlights bobbed 2 blocks behind, closing fast. "They're not far." "Then we're faster." The chain-link fence rattled under my weight as I hauled myself up, shoulder wound screaming. I hooked a foot over the top, the barbed wire tearing at my jacket. I dropped down hard on the other side, knees jarring. "Come on," I called. Lena scrambled up, her fingers slipping in the wet. She swung one leg, almost snagged by the barbed wire, then dropped beside me. The bag slammed against her ribs, but she didn't let go. The train's roar swallowed the street behind us. Our pursuers reached the fence, shouting, beams jittering across steel. 2 started climbing, but the train cut their path, boxcars hammering by like a barrier of iron teeth. "Move!" I urged, pulling Lena along the gravel shoulder. We ran parallel to the train, its noise so loud it shook the ground. The shadows of containers stretched long, flickering in the floodlights. My chest heaved, blood soaking the shirt at my shoulder, each step harder than the last. Lena's voice cracked through the din. "They'll wait it out. Cross when it ends. Then we don't wait." I spotted it, a ladder welded to the side of a boxcar, rattling as it screamed past. My pulse spiked. "Grab on!" I shouted. Her eyes went wide. "You're insane! Best chance we've got." The next ladder came. I shoved her forward, and she leapt, fingers catching the cold steel rungs. Her feet scrambled, found footing. She pulled herself up, bag still slung across her shoulder. I lunged for the next one. My good hand clamped the rung, my body yanked upward as the ground blurred beneath me. Pain tore through my wounded shoulder, nearly ripping me loose. I bit down hard, teeth grinding, and hauled myself higher. The yard fell away below us, a river of gravel and steel. Rain whipped my face, stung my eyes. Lena clung above me, her hair plastered, knuckles white. We rode the train into the dark, the city peeling back in streaks of light. For the first time all night, there was distance between us and them. We climbed higher, crawling onto the grated platform between 2 cars. The metal vibrated under our weight, every bolt rattling. The train clattered like an angry god, deafening in the storm. Lena dropped onto her knees, clutching the bag tight. Her eyes glistened, half terror, half relief. "We made it!" I leaned against the rail, chest burning, blood still leaking through the makeshift bandage. For now. The city lights thinned as the train dragged us out, deeper into the industrial sprawl. Warehouses became dark fields, chain-link fences became open grass. Only the horn kept calling, long and mournful, like a warning. Lena finally spoke, her voice small against the thunder. "What's on that drive? It's worse than I thought, isn't it?" I pulled it from my jacket, turned it over in the dim light. The casing was scuffed, taped with Alvarez's scrawl. "The real fire. Whatever's on here," I said, "is enough to make them burn half the city to keep it quiet." Her hands tightened on the bag. "Then why are we still alive?" "Because they don't want us dead yet. They want us broken, tired, willing to trade." She stared out at the blur of night, rain streaking her face like tears. "I'll never trade." I studied her, the set of her jaw, the exhaustion etched deep. She wasn't the same frightened girl who'd slipped into my back seat hours ago. Something harder had taken root. Before I could answer, a sound cut through the train's roar, metallic, deliberate. A door sliding open on the next car. Lena froze. "Mateo, someone's here." The clatter of the train masked most sounds, but this one was clear, a door grinding open, sliding against warped metal. The wind carried the echo along the boxcars. Lena pressed her back against the railing, eyes wide. "They're on the train," I raised the revolver, empty but heavy in my grip. My wounded arm throbbed with each vibration of the steel beneath us. Stay behind me. From the shadowed gap of the next car, a figure emerged. Rain slicked off a black jacket, hood low, face obscured. He moved steady, not rushing. Confident. Then another figure followed. And another. 3. All of them climbing across the grating like they had all the time in the world. Lena's voice cracked. How did they? They're everywhere, I muttered. The lead figure stopped 10 feet away, raising his head just enough for the light to catch his face. Not mustache guy. Worse. Syrup voice. His expression was calm, patient, the storm dripping off his hood. You've made this exhausting, Mateo. But trains always end somewhere. And so do you. I leveled the revolver, keeping it steady. This car's full of witnesses. Try me here. He chuckled, low and ugly. You think anyone hears you? Out here? He gestured at the rushing fields, endless black sliding past. You're just ghosts riding a coffin of steel. The 2 men behind him fanned out, boots ringing on the grating. Their hands dipped to their sides. Weapons. My pulse pounded. Lena. Ladder. Go. She shook her head, clutching the bag tight. Not without you. Syrup voice sighed, like a teacher tired of unruly children. You don't even know what you're carrying. That drive? It's only a fraction. We own the city, driver. The river washes everything clean. That's why we wanted her there. Why we want you there now. He took a step closer. Rain hammered steel. My finger tightened on the trigger, click useless, but they didn't know. Back up, I warned. For the first time, Syrup voice smiled. Not wide like mustache guy, but thin, cruel. He shook his head. No. You back down. Then he raised his hand, and the man to his right drew a knife, blade flashing wet in the tower lights. The knife wielder lunged first, closing the space fast. I swung the revolver, smashing it across his wrist. The blade clattered, skittered across the grating. He howled, clutching his hand. The second man charged, tackling me against the rail. Pain exploded in my shoulder, white hot. My grip nearly slipped. We grappled, boots sliding on wet steel. His breath stank of cigarettes and adrenaline. Mateo! Lena screamed. I slammed my forehead into his nose. Cartilage cracked. He reeled, blood spraying. I shoved him back, gasping, and raised the revolver again, still empty, but he didn't know. He froze, clutching his face. Syrup voice hadn't moved, hands still in his pockets, watching like this was all part of some game. His calm cut deeper than any weapon. You can fight all night, he said, but the end doesn't change. Behind me, Lena's voice trembled, but it wasn't fear anymore. Then maybe we change it ourselves. I spun just in time to see her holding the knife, the one the first man had dropped. Her grip was clumsy, but her eyes were steel. Stay back, she shouted, voice breaking but loud enough to carry over the train's roar. For the first time, Syrup Voice's mask slipped, just a flicker, annoyance creasing his calm. He raised one hand, palm out, signaling his men to pause. The train screamed into a curve, throwing us all sideways. Gravel blurred below, close, hungry. My feet slipped, my wounded shoulder gave way, and for a split second I dangled over the edge, rain pelting my face. Lena dropped the knife, lunging for me with both hands. Her fingers locked around my wrist, pulling hard, hauling me back onto the grating. I gasped, chest heaving, alive by inches. She crouched beside me, drenched, trembling. Don't you dare let go, she whispered. Syrup Voice stepped forward, boots ringing. Touching, he said softly. But it only delays what's coming. Behind him, more shadows stirred in the next car. Reinforcements. We were outnumbered, cornered, soaked in blood and rain. But the hard drive in my jacket pressed like a heartbeat, Alvarez's words echoing, the real fire. I tightened my grip on the revolver, met Lena's eyes, and whispered, Time to light it. The train roared into the night, carrying us all like unwilling passengers bound for hell. Syrup Voice stood 10 feet away, calm as rain, while his men fanned out. More shadows climbed onto the grating from the next car, faces wet, eyes sharp. Lena knelt beside me, shaking, her clothes plastered to her skin. The hard drive pressed cold against my ribs inside the jacket. Alvarez's note burned in my mind. Don't trust the bag. This is the real fire. I pulled it free, held it up. You want this? You'll never get it intact. Syrup Voice's smile never wavered. You don't even know what's on it. But we do. And we've got copies, driver. That's why we're patient. He stepped closer, boots ringing on wet steel. The only thing you've got left is her. Hand her over. Hand the drive over. You walk away. Lena's voice cracked, sharp and furious. Liar! His eyes flicked to her, unbothered. I don't lie. I purchase. And everyone has a price. The train screamed around another bend, the horizon flashing with distant city lights. I tightened my grip on the revolver, not for the bullets, but for the bluff. Then I turned to Lena. Give me the bag. Her eyes widened. What? Trust me. She hesitated only a second before shoving it into my hands. I hurled it hard down the length of the car. It smacked against the railing, burst open, papers, Polaroids, burner phones spilling like entrails into the storm. Every head turned. For a split second, their formation broke. Now! I shouted. Lena grabbed the knife again, charging toward the mess, kicking half the contents into the rushing dark below. The men shouted, lunged after her, trying to save the evidence. I rose, pain blinding, and swung the revolver like a club into the nearest man's jaw. He went down hard, blood spraying. Another swung at me. I ducked, shoulder screaming, and drove my fist into his ribs. Syrup Voice didn't flinch. He just watched, rain dripping from his hood, smile fading to something colder. You think scraps matter? He called over the storm. The fire's in your hand, Mateo. Not hers. Yours. I looked down at the drive, slick with rain, tape peeling. The hard drive. The real fire. And I understood. Then let's burn. I growled. I slammed it against the railing, sparks spitting as the casing cracked. I raised it again, ready to smash it to shards. Syrup Voice's composure faltered, just for an instant. His hand shot out, desperate, the calm stripped from his face. Stop! He barked. The word echoed like thunder. And I knew, in that instant, Alvarez had been right. This drive was more than leverage. It was their throat. The moment stretched, heavy as stone. Rain hammered steel, the train rattled, and in the crack of Syrup Voice's mask, I saw fear. Then everything erupted at once. One of his men lunged, tackling my arm. The drive slipped from my hand, clattering across the grating. Lena dove for it, sliding on her knees, fingers outstretched. Another man grabbed her hood, yanking her back. She screamed, twisting, knife flashing. I fought like a drowning man, elbow, fist, teeth. My shoulder howled with every move, blood hot and slick down my side. The revolver slipped from my grip, bounced once, and vanished into the blur below. Syrup Voice advanced through the chaos, his voice low, commanding, slicing through the storm. Take her! Kill him! The words ignited something in me, raw and furious. I wrenched free from the grip on my arm and hurled myself into the fray. My shoulder lit with agony, but I didn't care. Lena's scream cut through the noise. I saw her pinned against the rail, the drive slipping from her hands. It teetered on the edge, a glint of steel above the rushing black. Mateo! I dove, catching it just as the train hit another curve. The world tilted, throwing us all sideways. A man's body slammed against me, shoving me closer to the edge. My grip faltered, the drive slick in my palm. Syrup Voice loomed above us, eyes burning now, calm gone. He reached for the drive, his hand steady, certain. And for the first time all night, I saw it in his face, not patience, not control. Desperation. The drive slicked in my palm, rain and blood making it hard to hold. The curve of the train threw my balance sideways, my boots skidding on the graded platform. One wrong move and I'd tumble into the blur of gravel and steel screaming beneath us. Syrup voice crouched low, steady against the sway, his hand reaching. His eyes weren't calm anymore, they were wide, greedy, a man watching his empire hang by a thread. "Give it to me," he barked, the syrup gone from his voice. "Now." Lena twisted free from the man holding her, knife slashing across his arm. He howled, clutching the wound, and she stumbled toward me, breath ragged. "Mateo, don't let him!" Another hand grabbed my wrist, trying to pry the drive loose. I smashed my head backward into a nose, felt bone crack, hot blood spray. The grip loosened, but more boots pounded onto the car. Reinforcements. We were losing ground. I glanced at Lena, at her wild eyes, her soaked clothes, the bag long gone. I thought of Alvarez, of the key he'd pressed into my palm, of his raspy voice, "Don't waste it like I did." And then I made the choice. With all the strength I had left, I hurled the drive upward, into the storm. For an instant it spun in the air, catching the tower lights, glinting like a fragment of lightning. Syrup Voice's scream was raw, inhuman. "No!" His men lunged, reaching, but the drive sailed over them, arcing, then vanished into the black maw of the night. The storm swallowed it whole. For a heartbeat, everything froze. The men stared, stunned. Syrup Voice's chest heaved, rain dripping off his hood, his hands trembling with fury. "You idiot!" he hissed. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "Yeah," I rasped, spitting blood onto the grating. "I stopped you from holding it." He lunged. I barely raised my arms before his weight slammed into me. My back crashed against the rail, pain exploding through my wounded shoulder. His hands went for my throat, iron strong, thumbs pressing down. Spots bloomed in my vision. "Mateo!" Lena shrieked. I clawed at his wrists, the storm roaring in my ears, the world narrowing to his face, eyes wild, mouth twisted, fury breaking through all the syrup. He wasn't calm anymore. He was just a man afraid. And then the knife flashed. Lena drove it into his side, low, hard. His scream ripped through the night, his grip loosening. He staggered back, clutching his ribs, blood dark in the rain. I collapsed against the rail, coughing, gasping, lungs burning for air. Lena dropped the knife, shaking, staring at what she'd done. Syrup Voice straightened, swaying, his eyes full of hate. "This isn't over," he rasped. "Not for either of you." Then he staggered backward, slipped on the slick steel, and vanished into the blur below. The train roared on, indifferent, pulling us farther into the dark. The men froze where they stood, shock on their faces. None moved to help their fallen leader. One by one, they backed away, retreating toward the next car. Their flashlights bobbed once, then disappeared into shadow. And just like that, we were alone. Rain pattered on steel, softer now. My chest rose and fell in ragged gasps, every breath cutting sharp. My shoulder throbbed, blood sticky under the soaked fabric. Lena knelt beside me, her hands trembling as they hovered over my wound. "You're alive." "Mostly," I croaked. Her eyes darted to the space where Syrup Voice had fallen. The blur of tracks swallowed everything. Nothing remained. "He's gone," she whispered, though her voice didn't sound convinced. I forced myself to sit upright, groaning. "Not gone. Men like him don't die that easy. But he's out of the game, for now." She shivered, hugging herself. "And the drive. Gone too." I leaned back against the rail, rain streaking my face. "But maybe that's the point. If it scared him that much, then losing it hurts them more than keeping it." Her gaze found mine, fierce despite the tears. "Then what do we do now?" I looked out into the storm, the endless blur of night rushing by. The train carried us farther from the city, from the depot, from everything we'd known. "For the first time tonight," I said, my voice low, steady, "we stop running where they tell us. We choose where this ends." Lena nodded, jaw tight, resolve cutting through the fear. Then we end it together. The train screamed into the distance, sparks flying off the rails, carrying us deeper into the dark. Hours bled away in clattering steel and rain. The freight slowed near dawn, brakes screeching, sparks fanning into the pale horizon. The storm had thinned to mist, the night softening into gray. Lena and I crouched on the platform between cars, stiff with cold, every muscle screaming. My wound pulsed with each heartbeat, my shirt glued to my shoulder with blood. When the train groaned to a crawl, I nodded at the ladder. Next stop. She climbed first, boots scraping, bagless now but still clutching the knife. I followed, teeth clenched against the fire in my arm. We dropped into gravel, knees jarring, and stumbled away from the tracks. The world around us was barren, an abandoned freight station, rusted signs tilting, weeds cracking through concrete. A single street lamp buzzed weakly, painting the fog in jaundiced halos. For the first time in hours, silence. Lena collapsed onto the curb, shivering, hair plastered to her face. Where are we? South Edge, I said, scanning the skyline. Industrial strip. Nobody here but rats. She laughed weakly, a sound closer to sobbing. Then maybe it's safe. I lowered myself beside her, every bone heavy. My chest heaved. For a moment, we just sat, letting the quiet breathe around us. But I couldn't shake it. Syrup voices screamed, the desperation in his eyes as the drive spun into the night. He was out there still. Broken, maybe. Not gone. They'll regroup, I said. They always do. Lena wrapped her arms around her knees, voice small. Then where do we go? No drive, no bag. Nothing left. I reached into my pocket, pulled out Alvarez's key. The metal was cold, tarnished, still biting into my palm. Not nothing, I said. Her head lifted, eyes locking on it. Another locker? Maybe, I said. He said not to waste it. That means there's more. A second chance. She exhaled hard, half a laugh, half disbelief. Feels like we've been running circles. We have. I looked down the empty road, dawn bleeding over the horizon. But maybe this time, we set the circle on fire. We limped through cracked streets, fog curling around chain link and broken windows. The city's pulse felt distant here, muffled. At a corner, we found a payphone, ancient, rusted, graffiti-scarred. But the receiver still hummed with a faint dial tone. I lifted it, testing. Lena frowned. Who could we even call? I hesitated. Jess's name flickered in my mind, her voice, calm even when I was panicked. Diaz, maybe if he still owed her. Or Richie if he hadn't run dry on favors. But every name was a risk. Every call might already be tapped. Instead, I hung it up. Nobody. Not yet. Lena stared at me, hollow-eyed. So we just keep walking? Until we find where Alvarez wanted this key to take us. She shook her head, almost laughing. You talk like you've got a map. I don't, I admitted. But I've got something better. I know the places nobody looks twice at. Bus stations, laundromats, diners that never close. Alvarez was a cop too long not to use the shadows. Her voice softened. And you trust him? I looked down at the key, rust and tarnish eating at its edge. More than I trust anyone left breathing. We moved again, the city slowly waking, delivery trucks groaning past, neon signs flickering to life. People starting their day, unaware of the storm stalking us. And in every window, every car mirror, I expected to see him, mustache guy, syrup voice, shadows with patient smiles. The river wasn't just water. It was everywhere. The key finally found its lock 3 hours later. Not in a station. Not in some underground stash. A diner. The kind of place that still served coffee in chipped mugs and pie from a display case that hadn't rotated since the 90s. Neon buzzed in the windows, ETS. Open 24 hours. Trucks idled in the lot, drivers half asleep over their hash browns. We slipped into a corner booth, damp clothes sticking to cracked vinyl. The waitress, a tired woman with a bun of silver hair, poured 2 coffees without asking. "Breakfast rush in a bit," she said flatly, eyes sliding past us without care. "Eat quick or stay out the way." When she left, I pulled the key from my pocket, laid it on the table. Tarnished brass against formica. Lena stared at it like it was a riddle. "What's here?" "Alvarez knew this place," I said. "Cops came here after shifts. Deals got whispered over pancakes. And lockers." I glanced toward the back, where a row of coat hooks lined the wall above a cracked jukebox. "Sometimes lockers don't look like lockers." She followed my gaze, then frowned. "You think?" "Only one way to know." I slid from the booth, limped past the counter, and found it, a narrow panel set flush in the wall beside the jukebox, paint bubbled, keyhole disguised beneath a flap of tape. The key slid in smooth, turned with a click. The panel swung open, revealing a shallow cavity lined with duct tape. Inside, a smaller envelope, plastic wrapped against moisture. I pulled it free, heart thudding. Back at the booth, Lena tore the wrap, slid the papers out. Her hands shook as she spread them across the table. Bank statements, transfers, offshore accounts, photographs, politicians, judges, cops, all shaking hands with the same men we'd run from all night. And at the center, a single sheet typed, names in a neat column. Lena's breath caught. This is everyone." I nodded grimly. "The network. Alvarez mapped it out. The bag was bait, the drive was panic, but this is the kill shot." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "If we get it out." My gaze swept the diner, truckers half asleep, the waitress refilling mugs, a cop leaning on the counter with a donut. Normal people, living normal lives, unaware that the rot ran through all of it. "They'll burn the city down to keep this quiet," I said. "And now they know we have it." As if summoned, the door's bell jingled. I looked up. Mustache guy stepped inside. He looked almost casual in the diner's fluorescent light, cap pulled low, jacket zipped, no weapon visible. He slid into a booth near the door, tipped 2 fingers to the waitress. "Coffee. Black." She nodded, unbothered, poured from the pot. But his eyes never left ours. Lena's hand trembled as she gathered the papers, stuffing them back into the envelope. "How did he?" "Doesn't matter," I said. My voice stayed low, steady. "What matters is nobody here knows what's about to happen." Mustache guy sipped his coffee, savoring it. Then he leaned back, one arm draped across the booth. "You made quite a mess," he called softly across the diner. His voice carried just enough, casual, like talking to an old friend. "But it ends here. No more running." The cop at the counter glanced over, curious. The waitress frowned. Tension thickened the air. I slipped my hand under the table, resting it on the knife Lena had carried since the train. My bloodied shoulder throbbed, my vision blurred at the edges, but I forced myself to sit tall. "Then come take it," I said. Mustache guy smiled. Not wide, not cruel, just certain. And for the first time, I realized he wasn't here to fight. He was here to watch. Because someone else was already moving outside, shadows crossing the diner's frosted windows. Lena's eyes widened. "Mateo!" The bell jingled again. 3 more men stepped in. The bell's chime hadn't even died before the 3 men spread out, casual but deliberate, one by the counter, one blocking the door, the last sliding into a booth near the window. Their jackets hung heavy, bulges at the ribs that weren't wallets. The waitress, bless her tired bones, didn't notice, or pretended not to. She poured coffee like nothing was wrong, humming off-key, the smell of burnt bacon drifting from the kitchen. The cop at the counter glanced once, frowned, then went back to his donut. Either blind or bought. Mustache guy leaned forward in his booth, elbows on the formica, coffee steaming between his hands. His eyes never left us. "Funny thing about messes," he said, voice low but carrying. "Somebody's always left to clean them. That's us." Lena slid closer to me in the booth. her hand gripping my knee under the table, steadying herself. "Mateo," she whispered, "they'll kill everyone in here if they have to." She wasn't wrong. And yet, this diner wasn't Bridgeworks, or a yard, or a train car swallowed by rain. This place had witnesses. Noise. Civilians. A stage. I raised my voice, sharp enough to cut through clinking silverware. "You lay a hand on us here, and every trucker in this place sees it. Every waitress, every fry cook. That's a lot of mouths to shut." One of the men near the door sneered. "Witnesses vanish all the time." But Mustache Guy didn't smile. He just sipped his coffee, eyes locked on me. "You're bleeding out, driver. Sooner or later you'll fall. All we have to do is wait." I pressed my hand to my shoulder, hot and sticky. He wasn't wrong. I was fading, every second heavier than the last. That's when Lena did something I didn't expect. She stood. Envelope in her fist, chin lifted, she stepped out from the booth, voice trembling but loud. "You want this? Then everyone in here sees what you're trying to bury." Every head in the diner turned. Forks paused halfway to mouths. The waitress stopped mid-pour. Even the cop looked up, powdered sugar dusting his lip. Mustache Guy's eyes narrowed. "Sit down, girl." Instead, she tore the envelope open, fanning the papers across our sticky table. Names, photos, account numbers. Ugly truths in black and white under fluorescent light. "This is your mess," she said, louder now, voice cracking but carrying. "And everyone here should know what it costs to keep it clean." For the first time, Mustache Guy's composure wavered. Not much, just a twitch at the corner of his mouth. But it was enough. The men by the counter shifted, hands dipping under jackets. "Mateo," Lena hissed. "They're going to." I was already moving. The knife slid from under the table into my grip. I came up fast, pain blinding, and hurled it across the diner. It clattered against the counter, grazing the hand of the man reaching for his gun. He yelped, staggered. The first shot cracked a heartbeat later. Glass shattered, coffee mugs toppled, people screamed. The cop at the counter hit the floor. Whether dead or diving, I couldn't tell. I grabbed Lena, yanked her down behind the booth as splinters rained. She clutched the papers to her chest, refusing to drop them. "Out the back!" I shouted. Bullets tore into the vinyl, the smell of gunpowder choking the greasy air. Truckers overturned chairs. The waitress screamed, chaos exploding in the small space. We crawled along the sticky floor, blood and spilled coffee slick under our palms. A round punch through the sugar dispenser, white powder snowing over us. Lena shoved the envelope into my good hand. "Don't let it go!" The kitchen door swung open, a fry cook ducking for cover. I barreled through, dragging Lena after me. Grease smoke and fluorescent hum swallowed us. Behind, shouts and gunfire. We burst into the alley, rain spitting, dumpsters looming. My lungs burned, legs trembling, shoulder blazing with pain. "Where?" Lena gasped. "Anywhere but here." We stumbled into the foggy morning, gunmen on our heels, the papers clutched between us like the last light left in a dying city. The alley stretched long and slick, puddles gleaming like oil under the buzzing street lamp. Trash bins loomed, graffiti bled down brick walls. Behind us, the diner door banged open, boots clattering, shouts tearing into the mist. "Move!" I barked, shoving Lena ahead. We ran. My lungs clawed for air, my shoulders screaming with every jolt, but adrenaline dragged me forward. Lena clutched the papers tight against her chest, her hair plastered wet across her face. Bullets sparked off brick. A window above shattered, raining shards into the alley. Lena cried out, ducking low. "Left!" I shouted, spotting a gap between two buildings. We veered hard, stumbling into a narrower passage, shadows closing in. Footsteps thundered after us. Voices echoed, sharp commands, hungry. We spilled into a wider street, deserted but for a city bus idling at the corner, its doors hissing open as the driver leaned out to smoke. His eyes widened at the sight of us, two soaked wrecks clutching envelopes and bleeding. "Go!" I shouted, dragging Lena toward it. The driver blinked, confused. What the hell? Gunfire cracked behind us. His cigarette dropped from his lips. He didn't ask again. He yanked us inside, slammed the doors, and stomped the accelerator. The bus lurched forward, tires squealing against wet asphalt. Through the back window, Mustache Guy stepped into the street, calm as a statue, watching us pull away. The other men poured from the alley, weapons raised, but he held up a hand. They didn't shoot. He just smiled. And mouthed, "Next stop." The driver was a heavy man in a faded ball cap, sweat beading on his forehead. "You two running from the devil or what?" "Something worse," I muttered, collapsing into the back seat. Blood soaked my sleeve, sticky against the vinyl. Lena slid beside me, clutching the envelope like it was oxygen. Her chest rose and fell in ragged gasps. The driver glanced in the mirror, eyes narrowing at the sight of my wound. "You need a hospital." I shook my head. "No hospitals." He studied us a moment, then nodded, as if he'd seen enough midnight trouble to know when not to press. The bus rumbled through empty streets, neon signs and shuttered storefronts sliding past. Inside, the world was quiet except for the engine's hum and the hiss of rain on glass. Lena finally spoke, her voice hoarse. "We can't keep running stop to stop." "He's right. They'll always be waiting at the next one." I closed my eyes, felt the weight of Alvarez's key still in my pocket. "Then we don't wait for stops. We pick the road." She frowned. "What road?" "The one that doesn't end with us bleeding out in an alley." Her hand tightened on the envelope. "You mean going public? Media. Everywhere at once." I nodded, grim. "Broadcast it louder than they can bury." Her eyes burned, fierce despite the exhaustion. "Then that's what we do." The driver cleared his throat. "You two planning to start a revolution back there?" "Something like that," I said. But my eyes lingered on the back window, on the fog swallowing the street behind. Somewhere in that fog I knew Mustache Guy was already moving. And Syrup Voice, if he'd survived the fall, wasn't finished either. The papers shook in Lena's hands. She met my gaze. "This ends today." I squeezed her hand, weak but steady. "One way or another." The bus rumbled on, deeper into the waking city, carrying us toward the choice that would decide whether we lived or burned with the truth we carried. By the time the bus hissed to its last stop, dawn had cracked the horizon. The streets shimmered with rain, steam rising from grates. Somewhere, a church bell tolled 7. People were already moving, commuters with umbrellas, shopkeepers unlocking gates, kids in hoodies dragging backpacks. Normal life, blind to the storm we carried. We slipped off the bus with the rest, the driver giving us one last look. His eyes lingered on the blood soaking my sleeve. He didn't ask questions, just muttered, "Good luck," and pulled away with a groan of gears. Lena clutched the envelope under her jacket. "Where?" "Somewhere with eyes," I said. "Somewhere they can't bury it." Her gaze followed mine up the avenue. Glass towers, news tickers scrolling red, satellite vans parked along the curb. The local media hub, bright, loud, unavoidable. Her breath hitched. "That's suicide." "Maybe," I said, forcing one more step, then another. "But it's the only way this ends." We moved through the crowd, just two more soaked faces in a sea of early risers. My shoulder screamed with every jolt, every brush against strangers. Lena walked tight at my side, chin tucked, eyes darting. And then I saw him. Mustache Guy. Across the street, leaning on a lamppost, coffee cup in hand. Like he'd been waiting all morning. His smile was small, patient. Lena's hand clamped mine. "He's here." I didn't answer. Because I knew if he was here, then others were already inside. Waiting. We pushed through the revolving doors of the media building. The lobby hummed, cameras on tripods, anchors in press suits, interns with clipboards. Screens flashed headlines, weather, sports. Normalcy. A facade. But my gut twisted. The air felt wrong. Too still beneath the bustle. Lena pressed the envelope into my chest. Her whisper was a knife. "If they stop us, you run. Get it out. No matter what." Before I could answer, the elevator doors slid open with a chime, and Syrup Voice stepped out. He shouldn't have been alive. Not after the train. Not after the knife. But there he was, hood gone, coat fresh, bandage peeking at his ribs. His smile was thin, brittle, but his eyes burned steady. "Morning, Mateo," he said, voice once again smooth as honey over glass. "Morning, Lena. Did you sleep well?" Her knees buckled. Mine nearly did. "You fell," I rasped. He shrugged, as if it had been nothing more than a stumble. "Gravity's never liked me. But some of us don't get to quit that easily." He glanced around at the lobby, the cameras, the people. "Bold choice, coming here. Very dramatic. Very public. But here's the thing." He leaned closer, voice dropping. "Public doesn't mean safe. It just means more collateral." Two men flanked him, sharp suits over harder frames. One's jacket bulged with a radio. The other's hand rested near his waistband. Lena whispered, "They're everywhere." Syrup Voice smiled wider. "Finally, she gets it." I clenched the envelope, fingers slick with sweat and blood. "You can't stop it. Not all of it. Alvarez planted more than this. He wouldn't bet everything on one copy." For the first time, Syrup Voice's expression flickered, just a shadow, a crack. Then it smoothed. "Maybe. But you're the last loose ends." He straightened, voice rising enough for the lobby to hear. "Security, please escort these two outside. They've wandered into the wrong building." Uniformed guards moved toward us, calm but firm, hands out. The crowd barely noticed, just another disturbance in the morning rush. Lena's grip tightened on my arm, her whisper frantic. "Mateo, what now?" I swallowed hard, pulse hammering, the envelope a weight that could either save us, or bury us. The choice had come. And everyone was watching. The guards closed in, calm but cold, their smiles rehearsed. The suits flanking Syrup Voice didn't bother pretending, they shifted subtly, hands ghosting toward hidden weapons. Lena's nails dug into my arm. "Mateo." I clutched the envelope against my chest, my blood soaking through the paper. The lobby buzzed on, oblivious, anchors fixing their ties, interns clutching coffee, cameras rolling in corners. All of it noise. All of it cover. Syrup Voice stepped forward, his grin razor thin. "Hand it over. Walk out alive. It's that simple." My breath came shallow, my shoulders screaming with every heartbeat. But Alvarez's words cut through the fog. "Don't waste it." I raised my voice, loud enough to slice through the hum of the lobby. "Hey! Everyone, look at this!" Dozens of heads turned. Phones lifted, cameras swiveled. Syrup Voice's grin faltered. "Don't." But I already had. I tore the envelope wide, scattering its guts across the polished floor. Papers fanned out, names, accounts, photographs spilling under fluorescent lights. Ugly truths, laid bare in black and white. Lena dropped to her knees, hands sweeping them wider, shoving sheets toward gawking interns and anchors. "This is who they are," she shouted, her voice cracking but loud. "They own the judges, the cops, the city, everything." Gasps rippled. A camera swiveled closer. Someone shouted for security. Syrup Voice lunged, fury burning through his mask. His hand clamped my bleeding shoulder, driving me back into the glass wall. Pain lit me white hot, but I held his gaze. "You think truth saves you?" he hissed. "It only buries you faster." I spat blood into his face. "Then we go under together." The guards hesitated. Cameras rolled. Mustache guy appeared in the doorway, eyes locked on Syrup Voice, expression unreadable. For once, he wasn't smiling. The lobby had become a stage. And now, nobody could pretend not to see. Chaos erupted. Reporters surged forward, interns scrambling for papers, guards shouting into radios. Syrup Voice shoved me hard against the glass, rage twisting his features. But Mustache Guy's voice cut through the din, low, steady, final. Enough. Syrup froze, chest heaving. Mustache Guy stepped closer, coffee cup still in hand, as if none of this mattered. But his eyes, dark, sharp, never left Syrup voice. You lost, he said simply. Syrup snarled. Not while they breathe. He yanked a pistol from under his coat, raising it at Lena. The shot never came. Mustache Guy's hand blurred, knocking the barrel aside. The gun fired into the ceiling, plaster raining down. Gasps tore the lobby. And for the first time, I saw it, division. Cracks in their unity. You don't get to burn everything because you're scared, Mustache said, his tone like stone. Syrup Voice's eyes flared, betrayal cutting deeper than any wound. He opened his mouth, but no words came. Just fury. Guards swarmed, grabbing both men, shoving them apart. Cameras flashed. Anchors shouted into microphones. The whole lobby dissolved into noise and light. Lena clutched the last of the papers, pressing them into the nearest camera operator's hands. Don't let them hide this! Don't let them win! And just like that, it was out. Alive in 1,000 feeds, in phones and broadcasts, too loud to bury. I sagged against the glass, every ounce of strength draining. My vision tunneled dark at the edges. Lena's face swam into view, tears mixing with rain and blood. Mateo, stay with me, please! But the world tilted, spinning into black. I woke to antiseptic and fluorescent buzz. Hospital. My shoulder was wrapped tight, pain dulled by drugs. Machines beeped steady at my side. Lena sat in the chair beside me, exhausted but alive, clutching a newspaper. The headline screamed. City network exposed. Judges, police, politicians named. She saw my eyes open and smiled, small but fierce. You did it. We did it. I tried to sit up, winced. They'll still come. Her grip tightened on my hand. Then we'll keep fighting. But this time, the whole city's watching. Outside the window, sirens wailed, horns blared, life went on. But something had shifted. The river they wanted us to drown in had flooded its banks, spilling truth everywhere. And though shadows still lurked, though Mustache Guy and Syrup Voice's fate remained tangled in smoke and power, one thing was clear. We weren't running anymore. Not alone.